Timo Werner still remains one of the most interesting players to come and go in English football in quite some time. Not only for Liverpool fans, for Manchester United fans, for Chelsea fans, and now for Spurs fans as well. And after they've confirmed that he is now loaned until the end of the season, we don't know if Spurs are going to try and buy him at the end of that. We don't know what's going to go on after that. But at least for this season, Timo Werner is a loaned Spurs player. He comes back to fascinate us and possibly frustrate some other people. Let's explore why here on the Laurence McKenna channel. If you've not already hit subscribe, don't worry about it. You don't need to just yet. Do it at the end of the video when you say, hey, this guy's actually all right. He's not as bad as I thought. Anyway, Timo Werner coming back to English football. Did he have a good Chelsea record? Not really. But at the same time, did he do things at Chelsea that gave people an indication as to what level he could be within Europe? Yes. Is he still within the very top tier of English football? Coming into it, probably not. Injury-wise, he's not had a great season. He started out pretty good, actually, for RB, and come the end of September, he was injured. He then spent another period injured, and then another period injured, and the last game he played was November 4th. So, not great, in which, by the way, I think he only played about 23 minutes anyway, and only had one shot in, the 89th minute. So, more recently, Timo Werner hasn't spent an awful lot of time on the field, at least for RB. That's his record coming into it. So people who are saying, well, we're looking at a player here who could have been coming in and starting, or could have been changing Manchester United, or could have been changing whoever he goes to, that probably wasn't going to be the case. Spurs here are signing a backup player, or a player who can give a bit more depth to the squad. Someone who can challenge, someone who can be really good in training, someone who last season, when I saw him in the Champions League a couple of times, away from home, granted, I'm not going to fly all the way out there, but away from home, he really impressed me. His movement, his interplay, the way that he linked up with other really intelligent players for an RB side was good. Genuinely, he was one of the players that caught the eye. He even scored in the game that I went to go and see at Celtic Park. Yeah, I think it was at Celtic Park. Yeah. So overall, when I'm looking at Timo Werner, I'm seeing a player that still has a lot of indicators that he has the potential to be a very good player. But at the same time, I understand he's not played many minutes because this is a team that is moving away from him as a player. Now, that may just be the RB system just bringing him in, processing him, and then trying to spit him back out at a higher price, or even just hey, we need to move you on from the squad because we've got other players in that kind of position now. Obviously, Xavi Simons is within that team. Even people like Fabio Carvalho, who aren't getting very many minutes at the moment anyway, are within that side. And they're a side who always need to be moving, always need to be progressing, always need to be morphing into something else, because obviously part of the model is selling players on or moving players on at the very least and trying to get some value for them. Now, Timo Werner, when he went there, I think was massively undervalued, mainly because of the squad that he'd been in at Chelsea. Chelsea had not played him in good positions. They'd not done the right things to get his confidence up. And even though he had a manager who should have had an affinity with him in someone like Tuchel, it was never really clicking for him. And you could see that Chelsea were just ready to move on. When he comes into Spurs, you've got a manager who has a track record of upgrading players, a track record of making players that a lot of people went, hey, is that guy good? He went, yeah, we can do something with this guy. He's done it throughout the Spurs team. He's done it with a load of players who previous season, the mentality was poor. The mentality was actually really bad, and it was taking a dip because of the manager that came in. He's proven with right backs and left backs and midfielders and even getting rid of Harry Kane that he is capable of revolutionizing and changing players fundamentally from what people term bad players because they didn't fit within the system that they were playing in, or people couldn't see a space for them within a team or whatever it is, to good players or players who have at least fulfilled the potential that they had. I'm not saying that he's made anyone world class. You could make a good argument that there are a lot of players within this team that are world class and are getting close to fulfilling some of that potential, or at least topping the glass up and then maybe seeing where they go from there. Timo Werner's always been one of those players. When I originally heard that he was rumoured to go to Liverpool, I looked into a lot of his records. I looked into what he was. He was always going to be a Mo Salah type. Someone who's coming into the league, should we say, as potential, not someone who is coming in as a finished product. And he kind of returns as a bit of a Mo Salah type figure. Someone who was maligned, someone who was made fun of, someone who people thought wasn't a good player, someone who people thought, well, he should have been, but wasn't fulfilling his potential. And so he had to go back to another country to recoup, to change his position, to get a bit more coaching, to go and, maybe just re-up his imagery overall, his image. That's what Timo Werner's gone away and done. He's done it quite well, actually. I think a lot of people saw him playing in the Champions League. A lot of people saw him scoring goals in the Champions League. A lot of people saw him leaving Chelsea and being a better player again. And he's still someone that in Germany, I think a lot of people think, well, there's still some potential there. Obviously, not someone like Bayern or someone like Dortmund, but those guys have already got good players in those positions. Can you necessarily blame them for not bringing in someone who's a bit of a risk or a punt in that position? Now, the difference between the player that was coming in the Liverpool and the player that is coming back into the Premier League now is that a couple of years have passed. Arguably years in which he needed to fulfill a certain level of potential and do certain things to get to the next level. We've not publicly seen that. We don't know what's happened privately. Maybe privately he's still impressed quite a few people. But publicly, a lot of people are still, well, most people are none the wiser for what Timo Werner has been doing in that time, because a lot of people don't watch Bundesliga football. But at the same time, a lot of people don't really know what level Timo Werner is at now, because we don't really know what his maximum ceiling is. Ange Postecoglou is going to be the perfect manager to get him into the next level, I think. He's been that good for, well, a number of teams that he's played for, but even at Spurs, I think he's watching players fulfill their potential. Kulusevski is fantastic. Richarlison should actually be better than where he's at right now. And possibly we're seeing someone like Timo Werner come in because of what Richarlison is doing. At the same time, we're also seeing that people like Son are fantastic. We're also seeing that anyone who's coming into that front line of the team is learning that Ange is good at finding spaces that people can run into, finding that half space, the underlap, the overlap of the fullback. Timo Werner's perfect for that. He's great in combination play. He's always someone who's looking for something else. He is part of that Kai Havertz type generation who basically go, I need other people around me. I need a system around me. That's the kind of player that I'm trained to be. Now, I mentioned Mo Salah in this because when I looked at what Liverpool would have bought Timo Werner in for, I looked at someone who seemed to be good for a dressing room, someone who seemed like a good personality, someone who seemed very consistent in the way that they acted, a good, well-managed young man who honestly had a good work ethic and never stopped running for Chelsea, never stopped putting in the tactical shift that he was meant to. It wasn't just about running with him, it was about doing things tactically that he was meant to do. And along with that, he also never really seemed to lose motivation. He always seemed to want to get back to the next level. And part of that was then pushing away from Chelsea and going somewhere else. So if he's coming into Spurs, a club where he's not guaranteed to start because they already have a pretty good front three, I'd say, then we're looking at someone who's basically going to have to work his way into the team. Tactically, he was all over the place for RB last season. Obviously, he was very much out there on the left and very much, putting in the shift on the chalk on his boots, but also just cutting inside, coming inside as, I can't remember who the other players he played in combination were, but there was another blonde player within the team, I can't remember who it was at the time, but he scored some good, nifty goals, some good moves that if I had watched him last season and Ange had been at Spurs, I'd have gone, maybe that's the kind of player that they need. Someone who can play in combination with these other guys. Someone who can complement the world-class players that they already have. This is a good move for Spurs. At least it's a move that you would go, well, it can't hurt you for taking it. It's a move that had Manchester United moved on someone like Sancho or been able to work out what they were doing with their squad, you probably would have said a loan move would have been there, but it's not the Ineos guys who are working there at United yet. And so that's why I don't think someone like him will come in just yet. I think you're going to see that in the summer. I think you're probably going to see some much better moves in that era, in that period, when they go, hey, we're going to find some value in the market. We're going to improve this position by 1%, and we're going to make the team better. That's what Ange is currently doing within the side. He can't make wholesale changes mid-season, but he is currently clear of other people within the table. He is currently trying to build a top four charge, which is clearly what Ange has been brought in to do. And he's clearly trying to get the team as high as they can and as much quality within the side, as much work ethic within the side, as much Ange Postecoglou-shaped players as possible to make this a viable Spurs top four challenge. How difficult is that to do this season? Well, now we're watching Newcastle possibly drop away a little bit, despite a good win against Sunderland in the past 24 hours. We're watching people like Aston Villa come up. We're watching people like Liverpool possibly reinvigorated to a degree where, they're a top four stalwart. Manchester United are dropping away. So whilst there are people dropping out and there are others coming back in, Ange is very much within that mix, right? Like, why would you not want to be in the mix if you're with Ange, if you are in that Spurs team? Why would you not put yourself within the mix if you're at that Spurs team? The equality. So I think it's a good move. I think we might be watching this back in a couple of weeks and saying, hey, he's injured again. Where does he fit? He's injured again. What are Spurs doing? Because they're paying 100% of his wages while he's there. still, you kind of got to take a player on. It's better than taking a £50 million punt in January, right? And bringing in someone who you're really not that sure of. He might be a good stopgap. He might be someone who's buying them some more time until they can bring someone else in. He might be someone who allows them to assess the academy. He might be someone who allows them to spend a lot more money in the summer because, hey, you didn't spend silly money getting in a £20 million player in January who you will only need for a certain period of time and can't move on for great value anyway. If Ange wanted him, and seemingly Ange did want him because he's coming very early in the January transfer window, then brilliant. That is exactly what you want to do. Back your manager. Whether you're buying multi-million pound players for, close to the 7 or 8 or 9 figures, whatever it is, not 9 figures, obviously, although 9 figures obviously would be good, but for the 9-figure level, great. That's what you want with Ange Postecoglou players. You want to find great value, coach them up, use your coach to add value to the squad. And if at the end of the season you think he's worth buying, then go in with an offer and see what you get. Spurs need squad players. Spurs have got bad injuries throughout the team, and that's why they've dropped away in recent weeks. Not necessarily in these positions, though also in these positions now. But that I'm not saying it's the front line that's affected them that badly, but what I mean by that is if you're going to want to build a wider squad, you want 5 stalwart front line players, you can basically go, I'm going to swap you in and bring you out. Are we going to bring on Timo Werner and put him on the left? Is he going to be playing on the inside? Is he going to be playing just off Hassan? Can he play as part of a front 2, which he has done before? There are lots of different options which Timo Werner offers because guess what? He's well trained within modern football systems, and Ange Postecoglou needs a player who we can know is hardworking, honest, and is going to be good within these systems. Anyway, everyone's breaking the news, so I just wanted to get in on it. I'm a bit of a fan of Timo Werner because it sort of reminds me of those days on the kickoff when it used to be like, hey, is Timo Werner good? Is Timo Werner bad? I always felt like I wanted to back him. I liked his eyes. I like that people call him Statman Dave. I sort of like him as a player. I want him to succeed. Obviously not for Spurs if they're going to finish above Liverpool, but hey, we're hoping to be in that next band up, right? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Would he be a player that would still be at Liverpool if he had signed now? Would he be a player that Klopp would have wanted? What is Ange going to do with him? I kind of see equivalencies between Ange and people like Klopp in the way that they are man motivators and the way they get their side involved and engaged. Be interested to know what you guys think. Anyway, good transfer for Spurs as far as I'm concerned. Squad depth is always what you need. Quality squad depth is always what you need. And quality squad depth is hard to come by in January. Good move. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Much love to Laurence's saying goodbye. Goodbye. Don't know why I did that.